Today is the 7th of June 2005, and that's me, and I am turning spinner tops. It has been a difficult afternoon. I've only gotten 1 or 2 out of 5. The others have been badly out of balance, and I have great hope that this one here might be one that will be fairly secure and good. So let's begin by using I'm getting the camera adjusted. We'll get it in position the way it should be, I think, here in just a moment. And we want to try at this point to see if we are actually lined up and ready to go for the business of turning some blocks into tops. The blocks that are in this lathe will hopefully end up to be turning tops like this, of which I have made about 50 or more in my years, and they're a great deal of fun. Let's see what we can do. Everything is ready. The tools need a bit of sharpening, so I will pause just to make sure that we are ready with the tools. That's the big gouge. That's a 3/4 inch flat scraper. That's a 1/2 inch flat scraper. Those are the 3 main tools that I use, all of which work very well. The large 1.5 inch gouge, which I apply to the block in order to make it round. Here's the round off. I try to work off of the bevel and simply scrape off the material rather than peel off the material rather than scrape it off. And it works very, very well when the tool is really sharp. And now we are in the full round. And I'll move in rather aggressively here at the bottom, which is the bottom of the turning top. I thought of saying the bottom of the top. That may be a bit confusing. I've come to enjoy this big tool so much and can handle it very delicately. And then I turn to my half-inch flat scraper for the purpose of going to the point. I have a suspicion that this will be a very badly balanced top. The normal procedure is to do as little work as possible on developing the top until I have tested it. We now put in the aluminum point. And I used a different method right now. The method that I used was not to drill quite so deeply. That has turned out to be a very, very nice point. Just a slight amount of sanding. And then we will take it over and test it to see whether we have sufficient balance to proceed to finishing the top off. This is not be a very attractive top necessarily. And I'll see whether or not it spins fairly evenly, and if it does, then we'll go on to the finishing of it. This is not going to work with a tight shank anyway. Use a different this one here. It's got more water space. As I suspected, that top has a big problem, and the problem is that it doesn't really fit into. The problem is that it's out of balance with light bark wood on one side and heartwood on the other, making it almost impossible to correct. And so I'm glad that I spent only a small amount of time on that. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm working with a piece that's very badly off-center. It's going to end up to be a much smaller top, and we'll give it a try, see if we can make something out of it. This is cherry wood and it peels just beautifully. And I suspect it's going to be fairly well balanced. I hope the camera could see how that peeled off. Now I'm moving down to put the point on the top. It might be better to say put the point on the bottom of the top. It's nice to have things well organized. Place. Now that would never come out because of the new method of putting this It's an aluminum pop rivet, which I'll sand only slightly so as to make sure that the point we have on there is sufficiently centered. And we'll go try now, and I think we probably have a very nice top here. Let me just clean up one small thing here which may affect the balance. There was some glue and irregularity where the stem entered the unit. And so let's try it and see whether we've got one here that will work or will not. That's tight in there. Let's give it a try. We have a very fine unit here, but I must cut the stem off. It's about 1/4 of an inch too long. Oh man. We'll pause for a little bit here to fix. All right, we solved the problem at the bandsaw, and now we're ready to finish this very fine, though somewhat humble looking unit. Trim this down a little bit. With a little bit of gentle scraping. And then we have to do some aggressive sanding on this one because I did some aggressive turning on it. Okay, let's bring down the finish with some steel wool, and let's see whether or not we are ready to put the finishing touches on. It is not too bad. There's a rough area here, and that's where the grain intersects, comes out. It's the end grain. I'll take just a little bit of that out of there. Hope that I can perhaps do something like that. I added just a little design to it as well. There comes our burn mark. And as you can see, it also leaves a burning mark right on the steel wool. And now some fine steel wool, which helps do a little final dressing. And one more look before I put the heated finish on. I think that's about as good as I'm going to take time to make this one. It will be fine. All right. And we go back to our Mylands finish. And the cloth, which is always kept in a secure, airtight container so that we don't waste Mylands. It's expensive. It's always to be shaken. It's called Mylands Build-Up Finish. It's a kind of lacquer which works extremely well. First we work it in by hand like this to make sure the entire unit has been saturated, and a little bit more wouldn't hurt since this is a bit of a porous unit, and I haven't quite figured out yet how to do that so conveniently, but it's coming along. Now we apply it with heat and friction, put a little extra on there. And the hotter it gets, the more durable and the more shiny is the finish that I finally get on the unit. After I put 2 coats of this on, which I've now done, one while it's stationary by hand, turning it by hand, and one while it's spinning, I put the cloth back into the airtight container, and we put on a coat of butcher's wax. Butcher's wax has nothing to do with butchers, except that the man who devised it, who originally put it together, was a German guy whose name was Butcher. This also polishes up nice when you use the friction method, and adds the advantage of being able to repolish it later on when the original finish begins to dull a bit. We have one that's a little stubborn here. Now we got him. There is the finished product, and I think it's fairly nice considering what we had to go through. We move quickly into the next one, and this goes right into here. And this is one of those stems that is a little bit hard, a little bit too tight. So I have to do something with this. I thought I had fixed all of them to the point where they would all fit nicely into the system here, but that has not worked so well as I thought. Let's see how this one goes in. This goes in perfectly, and I think this again will be a troublesome block, because as I turn it, you might notice that there is some heartwood here, and this is lighter wood. If I could get it to work, it would be beautiful because of the graining, but I'm not optimistic that this is going to turn and is going to be sufficiently balanced to work. So we are going to give it a quick shot and spend very little time on this particular one. Right, on with the face shield, and away we go. If the tailpiece isn't in place and secure, which sometimes happens, I end up having a lot of vibration. Let's take a little bit of this end off. And now I'm going to use the 3/4 inch flat scraper to, that's a dandy scraper. It's a delightful tool. This could be a beautiful top if it weren't for the anticipated problem of imbalance. I think there's going to be a serious imbalance here. And the only investment in these questionable units is one aluminum rivet and about 3 minutes of rough turning. So I think a very nice point, a little bit of sanding just to make things a little better, and I wish that I could save it, but I don't think I'll be able to. Let's hope. That collet, I need a slight adjustment in where that collet connects. Let me test it. Test it. My fears were unfounded. There's the rough-turned unit, and what I found was that it really is quite well balanced. Let me give it a good finishing off. Good finishing off, and it will end up to be a very pretty unit because it has the combination of heartwood and softwood. Hardwoods, hardwood, and softwood. This is hard to do because we are sticking out here and having some significant vibration. It's not how I would want to use the lobster either. Nice big stimulation. There's a little bit of glue on the end here that I would like to remove. Get that out of there. And a little sanding there in that particular place. I have to get it crumpled up. Now let's take a look and see if it's possible. Yeah, that really turned out quite nice. Let me see if I can sand out a little bit of the roughness here and here. I just tried to sand that out. And a little bit over here. Now, I think there's a limit to how much I can do with this. I may have already reached that limit. The burn mark on this one is going way on the top here. Then we will try and let's see how we look. Ooh, that's going to be a pretty one. Yes, it is. Okay, because of these two things here. Wouldn't hurt to try one more time and just make sure that we got a good spinner. Which we do. There's the unit, which ends up to be quite beautiful because of the grain of the wood that's coming in here. And it is a good spinner. Put it in here, put the finish on it, and set it aside for the rest of the rest of those that are done. Almost done, because I always have to dress the stem a little bit before I can call it finished. Okay. We'll give this a nice shiny finish. Two quarts of lacquer, and now 1 coat of butcher's wax, generously applied. You'll always bring up the luster when you give it a little polishing. Always bring up the luster. We also work up friction heat on this so as to harden the wax. And we have a finished product. Not a bad one. I've seen prettier, but it's not too bad. We have here appears to be a piece of steel wool stuck in. There we are. And we're ready to put this on the finishing block. There it is. Not a bad unit at all. Particularly attractive because of the grained wood that is here. This is a handsome piece of cherry. The grain seems uniform. It should be a very good block. Should end up to be a very nice top. Now we have about 40 minutes before I have to cut for supper. I can tell by riding the gouge over this whether it's flat or not, and there's still a little bumping there. So I'll take off just a little bit more. And we are ready to go. Now we'll go to the 1/2 inch round nose gouge. Clear off the end of it here. Let me move my other gouge, my other flat scraper. I'm going to stop and tighten it up in the collet just a little bit because it's not working very effectively right now. There. We need to have it spinning ongoingly, and that's what we need to do. That's much better. And then we want to take some of the top off here. I love it when it comes off like that. Okay, we're going to move toward the point. This needs some sharpening. It's not working nearly so well as it used to. Oh, that's much better. Much, much better. Now let's put the point in. I want to come down more to a point. a bit of rough sanding because it's been a little bit of rough turning. And I think we're going to have a very nice unit here. This is number 4 that we have been working with. And I don't think it'll have a lot of character, but I think it'll be a good spinner. So we always look for different qualities as we proceed forward. This guy here is tough. Doesn't want to work quite right. It's been a number of months since I videoed the earlier part of this tape. But it is now January 2008, Wayne Browning speaking, and in the last day or two I have turned out 9 of these tops. They're made of laminated maple, white maple, good, strong, heavy, and fairly well balanced units that I have put out. There are also a few softwood ones that I'm making. I've changed one aspect of this top, and that is instead of putting an aluminum point on this end here, I have begun to put a steel point because we found that aluminum was wearing down quite quickly, and it is actually cheaper to use nails, sharpen them to the proper point, dull them a little bit, and then put them in. I'm going to start with another maple block, and this block is a bit out of center, so it'll take a little extra work to get it centered. And so we'll proceed now with this one. We have the block installed in to the collet, and the tool rest in place. It's so far off I have to move the tool rest back a bit, and then move this into place, and this will end up actually to be a somewhat smaller top than the others because it's so badly out of balance. Here we go. That's very far. I'm staying far away until I get it rounded off, because it could just fly away. Peel the wood rather than scrape it. You get a better peeling by riding the bevel just to the right angle. The bevel is at this part of the tool, and this is a 1.5 inch inch gouge, which has always been one of my favorite tools in rounding off almost any size piece of wood, even small ones. It holds the edge when I sharpen it much longer than others. It is a Sorby tool made in England, and I thoroughly enjoy using it. It probably could use a slight bit of sharpening at this point. Of course, maple is quite hard, and so it does do a good deal. It dulls the tool. You put your hand here and you can feel that I have not even rounded it off yet. So this is going to be a fairly small, unit compared to the others. Now it's almost rounded off, and because it's going to, I'm losing so much of it in rounding it off, I'm not going to decorate it all. I'm going to leave as much of the mask as possible. So we'll move now to the half-inch round nose scraper, which I use to bring it down to the point. Now let's zero in a little bit more on this unit as we continue to work it right there. It's important to true off all surfaces, make sure that they're all round and not out of balance. And now, just to come down to the point, it's now time, since this is going to be a rather plain top, it's now time to do a little bit of steel wool cleaning up. And I think I'll put a burn mark here at the top. You put a burn mark by putting a lot of pressure with a piece of steel wool onto a specific part of the top. Now we don't usually like to do that. The steel wool got caught. Doesn't hurt anything. Makes a little bit of dust. So I am now ready to remove the tailpiece to check and see if we have a good and round bottom, and to true up and remove a little bit, just to slide them down here at the bottom. And to use our fine steel wool, if I can find it. This is the coarse kind, which is just fine too. Well, it isn't fine, but it's, you know what I mean. Now we're going to drill the hole, the pilot hole, for the pin. And I simply do that by pressing a small bit into the already indented hole, and then we take a sharpened nail which has been sharpened ahead of time. I'll sometime perhaps show you how I do that. Put that in place, dress that up a little bit, if necessary, with a file, which this one is necessary. And then with some fine, heavy-duty emery paper, so that we do not want the point too sharp, or it will tend to drill holes into the surface it's spinning on. But we do want it sharp enough so that it will be a point and won't cause too much friction. Let's take a look at it. It seems quite good. But it seems to be slightly off-center. I'm going to go and give this one a try and see whether it needs some kind of help. We'll put you on pause. All right? I've tested it and find that it's not balanced as well as it should be, so I have to try to figure out why it's not balancing, why it's not running correctly. Obviously, there's something about our mounting that is not true. So what I have to do then Okay, and I also noticed that the pen is wobbling. So the possible solution for that is to true it up with the file. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And we'll give it a try now and test it one more time. I think we may have made some significant improvement here. Okay, let's go give it a try again. At this point, I'm going to consider the one that I just showed you and worked on to be a reject. No matter what I seem to do with it, it doesn't seem to want to spin true. This also is a problem block, and I just happened to pull it off the pile that I have here, and it's going to be a smaller one as well. So let me see whether I can get any good out of this one. We bring the tail piece in, make sure that it's tightened up and secure. And let me put an edge on this tool. Two in a row. I've had very, very crooked stems. When I glued them in, when I drilled the hole was much too crooked. That I have to take off an inordinate amount of wood at the bottom. I need to readjust this. It's still not rounded down, so this will be considerably smaller than the size I like to make. Still not rounded down. Almost. So we take a little off the top here to round that off. We begin to move down to the bottom here. I'm going to go to the half-inch round nose flat scraper. Having put a fresh edge on this, it now just loves to eat the wood. Let me adjust this to a little bit better position here so that we can see just exactly what's going on. pressure on there will give us less vibration. Take a look at it before we go any farther. The wood looks quite uniform all the way around, and we seem to have a good block here without any separations in the glue joints. I drew up the top, put a little decoration in here, and a little decoration in here. Then I remove the wood that goes down to the point. If you leave too much wood near the point, it tends, when spinning, to hit the wood that's around the point. And now we prepare the hole by going in. And I prepare the end here so that we come almost to a point, but not quite. Very gently try to remove some. And do a little bit of steel wooling before we go on. A new piece of steel wool sometimes is a good thing to pick up. And we trim it off and insert the point. Let me just take a quick look at this point before I insert it with my number 10 magnifier. Perfect point. And I'll show you a little bit later how I make these points so that they are properly rounded. Now that's enough friction in there. It's an 1/8 inch drill I used for the pilot hole. And I want to finish that up. It's wobbling quite a bit, and I do not know why. We are not able to keep that trued up. Now I'm basically ready to take this to the... I don't know why. I hope it doesn't wobble that much when I try to spin it. Let me go give it a try. It's quite a nice block, actually. There's the seams of the glue joints are closed. That was not true of the previous one. And it's really quite a nice piece. Let's go and see what happens when I try it. I need to put it in here and see if I can true it up, because it spins but not very evenly. Wobbles a lot. Yeah, this is a very large problem, and I do not know what to do with it, because the point indicates that I'm way off center, and that is why it's wobbling. I don't know what to do with that. Okay, I have to try something here. I have to try something here. I have to remove the point off of the live center and then use that live center in a different way, and it's a point that I do not have a copy of, so I must be very, very careful about not losing that. There's another problem that I have to solve sometime soon. I think I'm going to take the time right now to try to figure out what's going on here. I think part of the problem with the screw that goes in, with the threads that go into the collet, is that they are, this is too long. Okay, there are always adjustments that have to be made. No system works perfectly forever, and you have to make adjustments as you go, and this is one adjustment I'm going to make again, which I made yesterday, and we will see if this time it's going to be better. Okay, let's see if it's long enough to connect with the collet, and put a good washer in here. No, it's too far back, so I have to make a better adjustment here. Always adjustments have to be made. Now let's see, what have we got here? Yeah, I think that's going to be just about right. Okay, let's give it a try. See if I'm trued up. Now we're going to try again with the file to bring this point into a centering. And I think it's better centered than it was, after which I will go try once more. I think we have a better one now. Let's give it a try. All right. And when I take this out, I'll pause a bit and see if we can do it better next time. I'll do some more work on that block later after I've done several more, and we'll do the finishing on several of them at the very same time. Okay, we'll put this one in. This is a little bit straighter, but I notice it's also not quite centered the way it should be. But we'll work things out. Now I need to put this piece here into the tail live center, and we'll move right into here like that and prepare ourselves to go. And let's move out a bit. All right. Okay, that's where I'm going to be. And this is coming off. There's much less vibration when the tool is sharp and when the tool rest is close to the turning piece. And we'll now go to the 3/4 inch. We're not going to use a 3/4 inch round nose scraper, flat scraper, because it needs sharpening. Peel this off, hoping to get off anything that would make it lose its balance. And I'll round off that top corner. So we'll go in here, clean off a little bit of this, and there's some glue. I would like to remove. And I'll go straight down here. Bring that to a point, and I think I'll just put a couple little details in here like that. And while we are turning like this, let me use the steel wool on here. I don't want it to get caught. Oop, I almost lost it. But we'll get that off right at the moment. And I'll see if I can put a big wide burn mark right into the middle here. It's too large an area, but I'm going to try anyway. Okay, now it's time to remove this. Drill the hole. And to insert the pin. This is the pin that I'm using at this point. It is a nail, half of a nail, which has been sharpened to a dull point. And I want to examine that before I put it in and see whether or not it's... You don't want an abrasive point on that. You don't want to have something that'll drill holes. This is good. So we will go forward with the next step. Which is, I'm going to make a point of putting this in. Now that's going to have to be filed down because I worked on it rather hard. So I have to redo the point since I dulled it with the hammer. And again, we want a nice smooth point. And why this point has begun to vibrate again, I do not know. I cannot understand that. But it has. Let's see whether or not we can actually do this or not. I think a little bit more polishing would be a good idea. Now let's go and give this a trial run. I'm not sure why it's turning off center. It should not be. It should not be turning off center. Okay, we'll go do it, give it a trial run and see if we've got one. I will reinstall it. It needs a little truing up, and hope that I'll be able to true it up so that it won't vibrate, but will be very smooth. I'm kind of disappointed in the whole process here because it seems to me that I have really good blocks, but they are not cooperating. So I'm kind of disappointed in how these are turning out. I have to always ask the question, how much time should I spend on one top? I always have to ask that question. how much time did I spend on one block? Just can't spend a lot of time on correcting wobbles and things like that. You just can't do that. Otherwise, you'll only be making 1 or 2 blocks at a time. That's very good. Now let's try that again to see what the problem is. Okay. Going to round off another one and see whether we can get a nice pop out of this. There's no need wasting time when you have to remove a lot of wood. It's a good idea to just get in there and remove it quickly. That's true on almost any project, and it's particularly true when you're working with nice hardwood, and you don't have to be concerned about it splitting. And after you've done a process a number of times, this is only going to get one detail. This is only going to get one detail. And we have a nice, very nice, smooth running top here. It seems to me that that hole is perfectly straight. And that when I turn this on, it ought to spin perfectly straight. But you know what? It doesn't. It doesn't. So I'm going to do a little detailing with the file here. sandpaper and see whether this is going to be a good one or not before I do any steel rolling or significant sanding. See what we can do now. Do we have a good one here or don't we? It is kind of strange. I find it quite strange. Yes. And this, by the way, is the collet. Collet is a piece of metal that's been machined with 3 slits so that when it compresses into a concave hole shaft, it compresses against the stem of this top. Let me try this one. This spinner. All I have to do with it is clean it up a bit and put a finish on it. And I will put the cleaning up. I will do the cleaning up now and make sure that it's ready to go. Okay, now why have I had so much trouble with so many of them? Perfect spinner. Very good.